Yo guys, Visionist Gen here, bringing you more Warzone content. In today's episode, we'll be bringing you the best areas to be landing in Rebirth Island, which will identify the best landing areas from the start of the game, but also as a regain spot for later in the game in case your initial start doesn't go quite as planned. So, on that note, let's get right into it. So first things first, if you're not already aware, I've made several best landing spot videos already on the channel for the Verdansk map since its return already, which are linked in the description below in case you guys are interested and play that big map, which made me think maybe it's worth making one for the Rebirth Island map, as I've been playing it a lot lately, and I know a lot of other players do it as well, and I'm sure there's loads of new or returning players who don't quite know where's best to land, or like myself, have noticed that certain areas are safer or more chaotic than they were in the past and have changed quite drastically. Now, notes to consider with landing spots are things like, are you going for a high kill game and ready for a chaotic start? Then the land in those hot spots, which I'll go over obviously in the video, rotation of the zone, the landing area, understanding the zone from the start of the game and where it's potentially going to end. These are also important factors to understand, although I appreciate Rebirth Island is a smaller map, so it's pretty obvious where roughly it's going to end each time. But also other things are safe spots, rotation areas, plane route, when to jump out of the plane and stuff like that. All of these factors will affect your start of the game and whether you're going to get lots of kills or have a safer or slower start to a game, depending on, of course, your playstyle. Now, as I mentioned, there's various factors which need to be considered. So when you're planning your landing spot, what I'll do is summarize all of the best landing areas in the map from my own experience and then break down the factors such as what to expect, is it a safe spot or a hot spot, why you should go there or why you shouldn't, how to rotate through the map and how to get more money and stuff like that, and safety reasons, and also just for high kill games, because for the most part that is kind of what I pursue. We like to go for as many high kill games as possible, and of course winning games at the end of the day, because that is the best and most important thing when you're playing these maps. Now, when making this video, I did make a conscious effort to divide the areas in this list to provide, like I said, safe spots, hot spots, money spots, etc., to cater to all different styles of player, as well as regain spots in case you're not after a certain spot on the map, or in case you weren't aware of the bigger picture, and particularly which areas are hotspots or which areas are safe spots. So the first spot on this list is the chemical area. This is a mixed landing spot for the most part, sometimes a great landing spot for kills, but more so plane dependent. So if the plane is arriving at this area from the start, you're more likely to find more teams and more kills. However, if your plane route is passing right over from the end, then it's sometimes just a bit quiet, and therefore you have a good chance at getting a loadout. However, like I said, if it's a mixed area, you are guaranteed a quick loadout quite consistently for the most part, and then you can then rotate in and around all the surrounding areas, such as bioweapons, harbour and industry, which are all also mixed landing areas from my own experience, which provides plenty of loot and have shops right next to them, making them great for getting an early loadout, as I've said, but also a great regain spot as well for people that don't really understand this. This typically stays quiet towards the end of the game. Teams don't typically camp here for the most part of the map, unless the zone, of course, is ending right there, which is obviously another good point to consider and mention, that you're going to want to get to this building quite early because of the vantage point it has. But being on the outskirts of this side of the map means that if you have to rotate into it, you are seen from various different types of windows and the roof and stuff like that. So just make sure you're considering your rotation at all times later in the game for this area, because in my own experience, this has been a proven difficult area. So just make sure you're considering that with your team. And then for the most part, because of the size of this area, there is plenty of loot. You're definitely going to get a loadout, enough money for a loadout, and other things like UAVs and stuff like that. But there's also so many orange boxes and sometimes loadout boxes as well in this area. So this is a good spot, in my opinion, one of the best spots in the map, especially, again, as I said, for high kill games if the plane is going over right from the start because of the surrounding areas, and also with a guaranteed shot right next to it. With the amount of loot, you are easily going to get a loadout fairly consistently. Now, as for the second spot on the list, this is the dock. This, for the most part, is a safe spot for more of the sensible and slower style players, but also a great regain spot for later in the game as well, in case your initial start doesn't go quite to plan. But it has plenty of chests in the boat and along the dock itself, with loot everywhere and a shop right on top of the ship to get an early loadout, and you can then easily rotate into control after to third-party teams if you want to try and maintain that high kill game and just play a bit smarter and still get plenty of cleanup kills, or if you want to camp on top of this boat and use the outskirts of the map to play slower and smarter and use the high ground of the actual ship itself to snipe or whatever you may want to do. It provides plenty of different options, but again, it's more slower and different style to players like myself who maybe want to get a more controlled and stable start rather than having to mix and get chaotic with players all around with the bare minimum loot, such as less plates and guns and stuff like that. Whereas this place, you're guaranteed to only have maybe one team at best, and then you're going to get an easy loadout if you guys secure that area for yourselves. And then as for the third spot on the list, this is the HQ, the headquarters. This is typically a real hot spot on the map from my own experience, somewhere with plenty of floors and buildings to loot, and within this building and the lighthouse and the house next door, which is what we call the grandma camos, and usually filled with players in pretty much all 3 of these buildings, but due to the location right in the center of the map, you are able to get a quick loadout and breathe for a second after you clear up on this area, because most teams are either fighting in the prison or the living quarters areas around, or even the factories, which means you have a couple of sort of minutes, it feels like, to get some sort of loot together and get a loadout once you win at the starting area. But for the hardest part of this is to try and get your team together in one of these buildings and secure these buildings one by one, because from my own experience, literally a team will land in each of these buildings, and it takes sometimes quite a few minutes to try and clear out each one of those teams, because of course it is resurgence. If you don't eliminate that 4th player, who typically hides up in the lighthouse or just runs around these areas, will get their whole team back, and it has proven to be quite difficult in my own experience. But again, that is my lobbies. I don't know what it's like in every typical lobby, but for the most part, I imagine it's somewhat of a universal thing that this area, just like with Control Center, is a hot spot for the most part, just due to the fact that it's centrally located and it has plenty of buildings, and of course the prison right next door to it. Which brings me nicely onto the 4th area on the map, which is actually the prison courtyard. Now, the prison is typically a real hotspot, somewhere with plenty of floors to loot within this massive building, and usually filled with players, but due to the location right in the center of the map as well, you are able to get a loadout at various different locations and surrounded by various different hotspots. But if you are a slower player who likes a bit more stability, as I mentioned, and a bit more time at the start of the game, I wouldn't necessarily land on the roof of this building, but from my own experience, you can land in certain different areas, because for the most part, it's not guaranteed that you're going to find a team maybe in the showers or in the courtyard itself, but from the most part, there is so many different teams in this area, so it is a chaotic start for the most part in my own experience. Now, however, due to the size of this building, for this episode, I'm actually just going to go over the prison courtyard area, as there's plenty of loot here along the catwalks and within the showers area and within the tents and the water tower. All of these separate areas are sort of exclusive from the actual main structure of the prison itself, which provides you with a real high ground to oversee the entire map when you're on this water tower, to sort of get a viewpoint on the prison roof, and then particularly you can get sort of in and around the prison itself after you clear this area out, because you are quickly going to be able to get a loadout because of the amount of loot in these sort of 4 sections of this prison, and then you can rotate into either the surrounding areas or then third party the prison from either the roof or throughout the building itself. Now, for the next episode, as you can see, this building is huge, so for the next episode, I'm going to go over the internal areas out of the prison itself, as summarizing it all in one section just didn't feel right. As you can see, there's so much going on here, and if you land in what we call prison, there's a very high chance you're going to have what feels like an endless fight throughout the game due to the location and the amount of teams that land here and choose to also regain it later in the game as well, which then leads me on to the final point I wanted to mention for the spot, which is that it's a great landing spot, as it's hot and chaotic for kills, so it's great for that sort of starting area, but also later in the game it's probably the best regain spot in the map due to the size, which I know sounds bizarre due to the chaos that this building provides, but you can either go into the showers area, the cafeteria, the courtyard, the roof, the cells, even in the upper floor, the infirmary. As you can see, there's just plenty of variety and space in this building, but as I said, due to it being centrally located around the map, you can rotate anywhere after as well, so a good point to consider is the rotation. It is centrally located, so it is good once you get your loadout, or if you like the rooftop and enjoy camping, staying up here as well is also another good thing, but you're going to get pushed and flanked on by many different teams, just bear that in mind. But for the most part, this is a really good spot, as it provides so much variety for different style of players as well. Now, as for the final spot I wanted to mention on this list, this is the Stronghold, the most southern part of the map. Typically, from my own experience, it is a quiet spot, plenty of loot and separate buildings to find yourself some money, and has a shop right in front of yourselves. But as I said, from my own experience, not many teams land here, so this is what I would call more of a quiet spot. But also another thing, which I don't know if this is just my lobbies, but for the most part, most of the sweatier players tend to go to Control, HQ, living quarters as well, and not many of the better players in my lobbies will land here. So you are typically, from my own experience, as I said, in my lobbies, I don't know what it's like for everyone else, but the lower skilled players typically land here. I don't know whether that is just a common thing because it feels safe and it feels like you got so much loot and a bit more time. Maybe that's the case. So maybe if that's your style and you're not maybe someone that wants to play at a really fast pace, this could be a really good area for you. But as I said, from my own experience in my lobbies, most of the sweatier players, the players that just like to go crazy and get the most amount of kills and so on, will typically land in the control center, the sort of HQ area, the prison, and so on. So just bear that in mind. But in summary, depending on the playing route, what type of game you are after and what loadout you are using, but also another low-key factor to consider is who you are playing with, whether you are playing on your own in solos or in quads, and also the skill level of your teammates and your friends. Whether you're up for the challenge and want to beat your personal best high kill games, then land at these hotspots that I've mentioned. However, if not, focus on the safe spots like Stronghold, rotate early if needed, and set up in preparation for the end game in places like Chemical, because it'd be quite difficult to win your games later in the game if you don't do so. But if you're going for just wins, then build on that win streak and land in these safe spots, because that is the best way to do so, in my opinion and from my own experience. But anyways, guys, there you have it. If you've enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it massively helps me out. And if you've any tips or tricks about preferred landing areas yourself, or you want to help other newer players out, or you have any suggestions about these videos, then let me know down below in the comments, and I'll get right back to you. I'm Vision SGN. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.